Azerbaijani for innermind.org. I'm at Volta 2018, and I'm talking to Jenda. How are you, Jenda?
Doing well, thank you.
She is the director of Pan American Art Project.
Correct.
Am I correct? Okay. And we are standing in front of a painting of a Cuban artist by the name
ABEL Barroso. The artist actually began as a printmaker, which is why a lot of the work has wood elements. So he started doing woodblock prints and then decided to give up on the actual print and use the matrix itself, which is why everything has a wooden element to it. And so the theme behind most of his pieces has to do with international issues of access of power and migration. So for example, in this piece, it shows how these different birdhouses represent different accesses into different parts of the world. And this piece shows how, in many ways, access to power is a game of chance, depending on where you're born. Being born in the third world and trying to get into the first world is very, very challenging. So he tries to address these issues, but with a sense of satire and humor, which usually helps in being able to kind of evade the political restrictions in a place like Cuba.
I see. What's the name of this piece?
So this piece is called Arriving Home. And it's based on, he actually worked in Japan for a while and did a series of birdhouses that were installed out in the fields. So again, it's because birds are migratory animals. He uses that as a representation to how humans have now become really migratory animals, following power and following money.
I see. And when I saw it from, just passing by your booth, I thought that this is like a neighborhood, like a village or something, right? Yeah. Because you don't see birdhouses like in such a kind of a perimeter, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and you can see in a lot of his pieces he uses the house. For example, this piece is called Calling Home, and it plays with the same thing of trying to travel and still maintain contact with your family, and how it's difficult these days as a migrant to be able to maintain contact with your homeland and try and adapt to the new country that you're going to.
Yeah, so he's got a lot of nostalgic kind of connotations in his work, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think nostalgia is one of the things that's kind of principal in a lot of Cuban art, because people look back to the way things used to be before things change, and they thought it would be a very swift change, but here we are 50 years later, and time seems to move slowly.
I see. Let's talk a little bit about this particular piece. I take it's privacy.
Yeah,
it's called
this piece is called Privacy. So initially his work had to deal with the lack of access to the internet in Cuba, but now he's kind of going more global and talking about how people now have an excessive amount of access to the internet, and how we have to give up a great deal of our privacy in exchange for the access to information. So it's always a double-edged sword.
So it's kind of the world is floating with a camera as a drone?
Exactly. So every time you utilize that access and you're able to utilize that information, every move that you make is being watched, which used to be something very indicative of a communist society, but now we're really realizing that it's happening on a world scale.
Yeah. Now, you said that he lives in Cuba.
Yes.
And a lot of his work has that nostalgic feeling of migration or immigration. Where does he derive that from?
Well,
he was born there and obviously still living there.
Yeah, he was born there and still living there, but ironically in Cuba, artists actually have the greatest access to the international scene. He actually travels quite a bit, so he became more and more aware of his condition as a Cuban artist as he worked doing residencies in Japan and in New York and other places. So. In Cuba, where very few people have access to the internet and have access to modern technology, he's trying to create his kind of third world technology. So here, instead of the apple, we have the mango. And the way that you can scroll through screens is very old school.
So it's interactive, right?
It's interactive. It invites you to kind of go through and realize the struggles of trying to deal with modern technology in a third world country.
And everything is made out of wood, aside from these
yeah,
canvases.
even these canvases have wood veneer, because again, he started as making wood block prints and then decided, forget about the print, let's actually use the wood itself. And it's all cedar wood that's native to Cuba.
I see. What's the lifespan of this? I mean, how is this protected from elements and things of that nature? Because it's canvas glued, right? I mean, it's glued to the canvas.
Everything is archival, but at the same time, I always say that, you know, art, like life, is organic, so it's meant to kind of mold and change. Usually when we bring these pieces, particularly the sculptures, from a humid climate like Miami or Havana up to a very frigid climate like New York, you can kind of hear them breathing and moving, but they adjust.